Matt, you've been making headlines at the Olympics this year. I've been impressed. You started off with the opening ceremony. You were that blue guy. I think it was Dionysus. People thought it was Jesus or something, but apparently it's some other the god of the Olympics. I don't know, something like that. I know history, but I didn't realize you were actually going to compete beyond the opening ceremony. But
let me guess. You thought I was the breakdancer.
Yeah, you were representing Australia in the breakdancing competition.
I feel so bad for her. I mean, yeah, it was awkward, but like, man, she is getting absolutely dunked on. And like, at the end of the day, she's still a person. And oh my God.
I agree. I feel bad for her also, but did she run that by anyone before?
Yeah, it was not great.
Somebody must have like watched that before she went out on stage and did her kangaroo jumps and her fish flopping on the ground move, whatever you want to call that one. That was rough. I hope she's doing okay.
I hope she is doing mentally okay too, because yikes.
The entire world. This isn't just like your country saw it. The globe saw it now.
Yeah.
And I realize not everyone tunes into breakdancing because it's breakdancing, but also it was such a ridiculous dance that it's a
meme now.
Yeah, the entire internet blew it up, and it was I was trying not to laugh, but it is hysterically ridiculous. And it's like clearly she has some skill, but I don't know what she was doing.
Great showing for breakdancing. I think this is their very first time at the Olympics too.
I heard that it was being canceled for the next one or something like that, but that might have just been a meme.
Not.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I hope not. But I read an article, and again, this is an article on the internet, so it's possible it's not true, but that basically she didn't see herself as being able to compete with the top people there. So instead of going for a routine that she thought would be able to compete, like a competitively designed routine that had all the like really hard to do moves and stuff in it, she went for this like interpretive thing because I don't know. The kangaroo jump. Yeah, kangaroo step.
That was my favorite.
It honestly looked like if I was like, hey, Matt, you got to go out and compete for it. Like so-and-so broke their leg. Get out there, Matt, go. And you're like, oh, I've never breakdanced before. And you're just making up moves on the spot. That's what it looked like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I think they should make breakdancing video games. That'd be kind of cool,
How the hell would that work?
I don't know. How does DDR work? I don't know. Works,
Oh, so you want to actually breakdance, but for
I
video
don't know.
game.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be a DDR thing or if it would be like you just combo moves on your controller or something.
XXY. Oh, he's doing a flare. Whoa,
it's probably
look at that.
a game. Yeah, it's probably a game already. We just don't know about it. We're not into it, man. Oh boy. So yeah, it's been an interesting week with the Olympics, but also an interesting week with video games. We finally got to play the game, Matt. The game we've been talking about for weeks.
That everyone's been waiting for. The Delta Force Hawk Ops.
Hawk Ops.
Great name.
Yeah. I've been learning more about it. Did you know it uses Unreal Engine 4 for multiplayer, but it uses Unreal Engine 5 for the single player, which is interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Including what is the Tarkov mode? Is that also 4 or is that 5?
That would be 4, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. I think
it
they
looks
just
good.
did it
Both look good.
Yeah, they do both look good. Single player does look like it's got more of that lighting craziness cranked up. Yeah, so I think that's why they switched it up to UE5. What did you think of Delta Force?
Surprisingly not bad. The first day was bad. It was rough. But that was because the server infrastructure was just exploding, and like netcode is a big issue, which we'll get to in later. But people were warping around all over the place. You were just fighting bots, and even when you were fighting bots, it was really rough. But after that first day, incredibly stable. I don't think I encountered many bugs. Yeah. It ran well. Like the optimization was fantastic. And like I left it, and I've still left it with a fairly positive reception. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, well, likewise. I went in sort of like, oh man, this is just that Battlefield clone thing, and it is, but also it's competent. It's like it just worked. Like most everything in the game worked, and it had some cool sequences, and I was enjoying my time with it. Mm-hmm. And it feels like Battlefield 2042 in many regards. Maybe it's hard to say polished, where I feel like 2042 lacks polish. And
this is more polished than the launch of 2042.
Yes, for sure.
Without a doubt. And
I haven't dug into how many weapons there are, but people are saying there's even more weapons and stuff than 2042.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
100%. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. It does feel, my one critique of the whole game was that it felt a little bit wooden in terms of movement and animations, but not like to a degree that it really was like, oh, I can't play this game. It feels too wooden. It was just sort of like, yeah, it's not quite as fluid when you're running around the map. You'll get stuck on stuff, or vaulting isn't quite as fluid, and the side strafing feels a little...
I hate the vaulting so much.
Yeah, the vaulting sucks.
You constantly try to vault onto something. It's like, nope. Oh, and then it goes.
Yeah, but that seems like something... It is an alpha, so if vaulting is like the number one bit of feedback, then that seems like something they should be able to fix.
And that's the thing I was surprised. This is just a playtest, and who knows when this game comes out. I don't think they've announced the release date yet, but it's remarkably fleshed out for having what's going to be a multiplayer Tarkov mode and a single player. Mm-hmm. Like the Tarkov and Battlefield modes, they share some similarities. Like they're using obviously the same weapons and stuff like that, but the underlying systems are completely different. Like it is its own mode. It's not just, hey, this is now TDM versus Conquest or something. This is an entirely different mode, and it works really well. I think the only biggest issue I have, is there's way too many like player bots that run around. I don't know if you experienced that in the multiplayer. It's too much in the multiplayer too.
That was my other.
Good God.
I didn't want to critique it too hard for it, but because we don't know in an alpha state what the bot to player ratio is, if it's going to be different at launch because there'll be more people trying to get in and play, or some, like, I don't know how many, because it's not an open alpha. They didn't give out tickets to everyone or keys. So maybe that's on purpose because they don't want to stress the servers out yet or something. But yeah, you can tell, like, when 3 out of 4 kills are guys just running into your fire and not reacting to it, you're like,
there's 17,000 people playing right now. Okay. So it's not like it's an instant. They should be able to fill up these servers.
Yeah.
But
that's how many people are playing Battlefield on a good day, So, I mean, they can fill up a server in Battlefield usually.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they should be able to fill up those servers. And it's weird to make that a critique of the game when you're like, the bots don't feel good, but I shouldn't be playing against bots, right? Like the bots just are running into your fire, and they're one after another coming down an alley, and you're like, that's weird that 5 people just sequentially ran through the same door only to get gunned down. So that's frustrating, but yeah, visually, gameplay wise, all that, it lines up. I'll say the vehicles felt incredibly powerful.
And terrible. Have you played with the...
Yeah, they don't feel good.
The helicopter?
No, but I saw videos of people playing with it, and it looks like... It's miserable. Like, I shot 2 of them down without even trying. I was just like, all right.
Like, they're good if you got a pilot that actually can sort of maneuver that tub of a monstrosity.
Yeah.
You can eventually, like, do some damage, but... God, it was a nightmare. I'm not bad at. I'm not great at flying, but Battlefield absolutely dominates them in the vehicle category, at least for the flying vehicles so far.
Yeah,
not even close.
Most games that go for this, like, you can be in vehicles and in infantry or whatever. Usually, the vehicle gameplay is horribly basic, and that seems to be what they're doing here. Where Battlefield is one of the few games that is dared to actually make the flight model somewhat challenging. I shouldn't even say challenging, somewhat realistic And even within the realm of realism, it doesn't even come close to like a flight
It's
sim.
not even realism. It's more of just it feels so much more responsive and intuitive to fly in the Battlefield one compared to this.
Yeah.
That's my biggest complaint. It just doesn't feel, and maybe that's just because I need to put more time into it, but it just felt clunky and awkward, and it wasn't doing what I was wanting it to do. Not great. Ground vehicles were okay though. And like you said, quite powerful.
But yeah, crazy powerful. And I'm not sure if part of that's because like people need to unlock the high level gadgets that dominate ground vehicles or something. But I mean, even the gunner, I was like gunning for tanks and APCs and just like, did I just get 15 kills in like a couple of minutes? What's happening right now? Yeah. And then you start to get shot by stuff and you just pop smoke back up and hit the repair button. And it's like, all your health is back. And then you just come right back. You're like, okay, like this seems crazy OP.
There's also little areas around the map that you just run up to and they'll repair your vehicle and give you your ammo back and everything.
Yeah. It's like they copied all the stuff that Battlefield does. So you have your little repair area and you have your auto repair ability that has like a little cooldown to it. They just didn't balance it at all. At least it doesn't feel like it, unless that balance is based on end game balance that we haven't experienced yet, where vehicles start at the end game power and infantry need to upgrade to that. But even that in itself doesn't feel like the best place to begin a game, generally speaking. But yeah, the infantry stuff is cool. Snipers, it had very arcadey bullet drop and stuff on it. I didn't
arcadey. How so?
Like you could see the projectile just dropping at this ridiculous rate. You're like, is this an airsoft rifle?
Yes. When you get attachments for it, it goes from 650, 750 meters per second all the way up to 1,100. So you can like, and then it becomes literally a point and click simulator for a lot of shots. So it's completely different.
That's very funny because I've noticed in modern Battlefield games, they kept upping the muzzle velocity of sniper rifles.
Yeah.
To the point where it just got way less challenging. Like, you come back into a modern game and you start leading way more than you need to if you've been playing an older game that like has harder leading mechanics. The modern games are like, nah, just kind of right in front of where they're running at full sprint. You're like, that's it? That's all I have to lead? That's
Battlefield
crazy.
4 was challenging because of that.
Yeah.
Like, it was quite slow.
So, okay, so you're saying the snipers start out slow and then you can bump the muzzle velocity from 600 to like 500 more than that?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's insane. That's almost doubling the muzzle velocity.
Now, I haven't unlocked it, but apparently the final sniper starts at a base of like 1,100. I don't know what its stats are. I don't know
laser beam?
Yeah. And then you put the other attachments onto it. Like, how fast is this? Literally just instantaneous. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So there's definitely a little bit of wonk in it, and I guess maybe that's coming from comparing it. I mean, it's impossible not to compare every mechanic to Battlefield because the game is ripping off Battlefield in a little bit of Call of Duty. So you look at it and you go, well, I like this better in Battlefield, and there are a lot of things in it that I like better in Battlefield. That said, this is free to play.
Yeah,
completely free to play.
100%.
And it's got two modes that are the base mode seems fine. It seems kind of like Battlefield attack, defend, conquesty type stuff. And then you've got I didn't really play the I played one round of the extraction thing and didn't get back into it. How much extraction did you play?
I put a decent amount of time into it. I was bouncing between both. Do you have any questions about it?
Like how did it stack?
Just general?
Yeah, it felt like kind of like a like a light version of an extraction shooter, basically.
A lot of people are saying that it is a mix between Tarkov and DMZ. And depending on who you ask, it's more DMZ than Tarkov. I personally feel like the actual gameplay, when the moment to moment when you're running around, is more like DMZ because it's like Call of Duty, right? The weapon mechanics feel more like COD. The movement feels more like Call of Duty. But the underlying systems and the loot is all Tarkov. So if you've ever played Tarkov, you're going to be pretty much right at home in that respect. Yeah. Going around trying to find little baubles and things like that, open up safes. There's big key objectives around the map where you will be rewarded, but with, potentially some really big loot. So those are high traffic locations. Everyone knows where they are. You don't have to have like an encyclopedia directly next to you to like know where those good moments or where those places are around the map. You just head there, you have some fights, and hopefully you win and you get out with some loot. It is also a little bit more simplistic when it comes to the health system, where you do need to bring in different variants of different meds and things like that, just like Tarkov, but it's not like, hey, you've got a heavy bleed, or no, that's actually a light bleed, so you don't have the right tool for that. Now you gotta wrap. You do have moments where you'll like break your limbs and you have to repair your limbs and stuff like that, which happens actually a lot. And if you don't, you'll have less health, which is interesting. And it's one mechanic that I don't like about that they've introduced is armor. So armor right now will break if you get shot a couple of times. And if you have no armor and it's completely broken, you will die almost instantaneously in an actual firefight. And so you have to bring in armor packs to repair your armor in the middle of a game. And I don't know if that's just because I play Tarkov, but having another thing when they're trying to like streamline the other aspects, it's like, oh, great. So instead of having to bring in all the bleeds, bandages and stuff like that, I have to bring another thing instead. Yeah. So that was one thing I wasn't too keen on.
And then, it's just like, how much busy work do you want to layer on top of me also trying to have a firefight with somebody?
I got a little distracted there. So in general, it is a blend of DMZ and Tarkov. And I think a lot of people who like DMZ were looking for something more like this. And it's like almost like if Call of Duty just actually took the plunge and didn't kind of, I don't want to say half-assed it, because I don't want to say DMZ was half-assed, but I don't think it lived up to its full...
arcadified it, though. Right?
Yeah, I don't think it lived up to its full potential. And this, if done well, I think will scratch the itch for a lot of people that are looking for a casual Tarkov.
It's, what I find so interesting about this game is, while it might not be doing everything perfectly, it seems to be very aware of what other games are not doing well, or what players want from the other popular titles. And it's like, let's just, everybody who had the feedback that they didn't like about the Battlefield games, let's try and fix that a little bit, or let's try and make that part of it a little bit better. So it sounds like they're doing that a little bit with DMZ as well, and very trying to tactically insert this game into that realm of what Battlefield players want, but also what Call of Duty players want, and apparently now what people who are missing tactical single players might want to, because I think the single player looks really cool too. I'm like, that does look dope. Like, if that's competent in terms of like the gameplay, then it'll be great.
What's awesome too about the Tarkov mode is it's so fast to get into a match. Tarkov, you have to go through all these different menus and getting your stuff all ready. And in this, you literally just prepare, and then you just click on all the different slots. You're like, I want to put that there, that there, and it just, you buy it from the auction house. You do the same thing for like your ammo. You don't have to have like 4 different mags or anything like that and fill them up with different types of. It's just ammo in your inventory. It just goes right into your weapon. I
don't get Tarkov people who are like, I want to all the different ammo types and all that stuff, and just
nothing wrong with it, but you got to be in the mindset that kind of game.
It becomes 2 games. It becomes Inventory Manager. Did you know that there's like mobile games that are like Backpack Wars and stuff, where you're
no.
I mean, there's a game called
Backpack Wars.
It's like hugely successful, where like it's basically inventory management, the game. It's insanity, but that's become a whole thing. So that's like what Tarkov is it's like inventory management, the game, and a first person shooter. And you're like, okay,
So it's really easy to get into a match and just get started. I think it's the ease of which getting into a match is because there's player bots, which is annoying. Like, you have your normal scavs, which you would have in regular Tarkov running around, and you have to take them out. But then you come across an enemy and you're like, okay, that looks like a player. Is it a player? Are they acting like a player? And so you'll have these really annoying moments where it's like, oh, that's a bot. But then another guy will around the corner is like, oh, that's a player because they instantly killed me. And I know this sounds like just a stupid first world problem, but it's a little annoying because you kind of you let your guard down a little bit when you're playing against bots, because like, it's a bot, right?
No, I get what you're saying.
And then that one person that was in a squad who wasn't a bot, they just dominate you. You're like, oh, cool. I guess I shouldn't have let my guard down.
This is AI in video games 101. Like, you need a clear differentiator between players and AI, unless the entire point of the game is to blend in with the AI or something. But otherwise, you want to know the difference so that you can react appropriately. Because if you see 5 AI running at you versus 5 players, the response is going to be 100% different from everybody, you know? So that needs to be very, very clearly communicated. So some rough edges, but we're also playing a closed alpha game. Assuming they take the feedback and actually make the changes, this could be a fantastic launch. And obviously millions of people are going to play this on launch because it's free to play. There isn't an entry fee for it, so there's no cost. And I like what I've played so far. I think it's got tons of potential. You like what you've played so far.
How'd you feel about the maps?
A little boring. They didn't have that Battlefield flair in terms of like having some crazy cool looking thing. That the one of those maps had the cool like verticality that felt very much taken
2042.
2042, but it just didn't look as impressive, if you know what I mean. Kind of a muted color palette, just not artistically as evolved as a Battlefield game, which is okay. I think it gives them a little more freedom to actually just focus on map flow. And I thought their map flow in general was decent, you know, for the most part.
I thought it was decent too. My issue is I always feel like I'm getting shot from angles that I can't cover. Where I'm just like, oh, I'm covering this angle, and then but I feel like I'm exposed to 20,000 other ones at all times. I love the medic class because I can just throw out the smoke screen. That smoke screen is so much fun.
You've been talking about that smoke screen for weeks now.
It's great. I love that thing. And lo and behold, when I was able to play, it was one of my favorite gadgets because you can like actually run from point to point, because seems like there's some places in the map where there's just no cover. You're like, why is there no cover over here?
Somebody can call in an artillery strike on you, and then you're really screwed.
The final objective on that one giant map, it's literally just cruise missile after cruise missile after cruise missile. I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah. Well, in fairness, that did also happen in Battlefield 5 to a degree where...
Not to this extent, because it's individually. It's like your individual score can... So if everyone's doing really well, which can't really happen because... But you know what I mean?
But you'll build up enough score usually by the end of the game where if you save it for that moment, it's just like... They're taking all the elements from the other games. Like this is clearly Battlefield 5 call-in UI where you can call in artillery strikes and stuff, but they're giving it to you as an individual as opposed to your squad. Right. And then it's sort of like they didn't factor in the balance of that, or they just didn't really care or something.
Because it's not fun at the end when you literally just get either knocked down by your own teammates or you're getting absolutely annihilated by the enemies.
Like the artillery strike coverage is massive, and so on some of those maps where they only have like 1 or 2 major chunks of cover to hide behind as they push up, and you call one in, you're just like, well, everybody hiding behind that rock is dead, or they have to rush out in some sort of mad dash and just all die anyway. There's definitely some issues with it. It feels like it's going to be a competent free-to-play, but not particularly well-refined game in terms of balance. Like, the problems are not with the performance or the graphics or anything like that. It's more just balancing a game of that complexity. Because balancing Battlefield, as you know, is a very complicated system, and every Battlefield title has gone through many waves of patches and refinements and going back on their entire philosophies of how to build out the balance system in the game. This does not feel like it's starting off in a place that, I don't know, a dice game would usually start off in. And that is saying like, okay, granted, some of the other games like BF1 didn't start off in a good spot, but I don't know. It feels like there's a lot of other things that are just not quite thought about in the same way, or at least not designed in the way that I would like them to be designed in. Like having a sniper rifle increase its rate of its muzzle velocity almost double via upgrades is super strange. Weird. Yeah.
And that could just be because their attachment system is massive. and there's a ton of attachments, and I'm vibing with it because it gives me that same Tarkov feel where you can really just kind of you can either make it to your liking in terms of stats. Don't really know how much the stats change the weapon's performance. I think it'll be really interesting once people get like a fully decked out weapon to see how much a control, like, 90 control versus 40 control, what will that do to the actual recoil? But the kind of the people that really like weapons and seeing how you can adjust them and change them and turn like a pistol into essentially a long range sniper is neat, right? Like, that's cool.
Yeah. It's like an amalgamation of all these games, like just throwing it together, and it kind of works. And
it does kind of work. Yeah,
it kind of works. There's some jank to it, but it kind of works. I'll be following this one. I got my fill of the alpha just because there's only a couple things to do in it. So once you
there's 2 maps for each mode.
Yeah. So for the Battlefield thing, I ran through it pretty quickly. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I actually went back and played the original Delta Force Black Hawk Down game.
Oh, wow.
Which this single player is essentially basing itself off of, which is all based off of the Black Hawk Down movie.
Yeah.
And it was actually pretty competent, I gotta say. Like, it came out in 2000.
Aged relatively well.
Not the visuals, but
obviously
the gameplay was, what's funny is I went back and I had played this forever ago, but just didn't remember. They render optics in the way that I've been wanting games to render optics for like years.
Forever.
Yeah, because any red dot sight you aim with 2 eyes open, because that's how you can and that's how you should be using them. And when you do that in real life, the optic housing fades away. It's not obstructing your vision, but every video game is like, here's an optic with massive housing around it, and then you lose targets in the housing. I'm like, that's just not how it works in real life. And it's so annoying that no game wants to try and replicate how it would actually look. But Delta
do you think
Force,
that's a balance thing that devs do?
No, I think it's an aesthetic thing because a screenshot looks cooler with the optic housing rendered, So I think a trailer and screenshot potential is 90% of the reasoning for that. And then once you're in game, you don't really care that much. You're kind of just focusing on targets. But yeah, Delta Force Black Hawk Down fades it out and it looks great. It's like there's a little bit of a hint of it, but it looks how it looked in real life. And I'm like, this is great. And I was enjoying it. And there's no weird housing obstruction. I'm like, why is this ancient game from like, the first one came out in the 90s, but this one came out in like early 2000s. Why is this ancient game the last one to have done it correctly? I don't know. I don't get it, but it's whatever, cool, man. Modern gaming. Yeah, it was neat going back to it. I mean, like, you can dive out of a helicopter, get into a boat, take the boat onto land, run your whole mission. It's pretty advanced. Like, you feel like you're a Delta Force dude. Like,
it's in the name.
Yeah, you're tactically inserting yourself to like a combat situation, and it's not as linear. There's a lot of cool stuff with it where you're like, man, we really did lose a lot of cool game design stuff in the past because AAA is just like, shove everybody down a very linear scripted path so we can show them all the cool explosions at the right time. And this was
cool.
Which is cool, but when every game takes that approach, it gets boring. It's like why Crysis is one of my favorite single players, because it's just sort of like get from point A to point B, and you got
figure it out
20 ways to get there, and you're like, great, cool,
yeah, agreed.
Yeah, so Delta Force was cool. It inspired me to play another game. There's I've been sort of getting into some weird niche stuff now. I've been kind of obsessed with remix lately, and I went back and I'm remixes NVIDIA's tool that can hook into old games and replace all the assets and lighting really easily. And so myself and Alex, my editor, have been messing with Battlefield 1942 and a couple other titles, and it's pretty easy. Like, you can get into it and then take a material from like Battlefield 1942 for like a building or a palm tree or whatever, and just run it through an AI upscaler, and it just gives you a better version of that material. And then you just pop it back on. And you're like, whoa, the game looks better. That's cool.
I mean, yeah.
It's modding it's modding made like incredibly easy, basically. So yeah, I've been playing around with that. I think there's a big future in that, and just been having fun kind of checking out what you can do with super crazy modern tools that don't require you to delve into the core code of any game. It just replaces everything before it gets rendered onto your screen. Like the game is still running under the hood, but as it says render a tank to your graphics card goes, yeah, but I have this remix thing running, and my remix thing says whenever you send me a tank to render, I'm going to replace it with tank B, and that's your upscaled, crazy, good-looking tank.
Right.
And it just replaces it, and you're not affecting the underlying game code at all. And it's like...
fascinating.
Yeah, so it's just insane. So it's the ultimate remaster tool, essentially. You can't rewrite the underlying game code with it, so I can't turn Battlefield into a spaceship game necessarily, but I can make it look incredible. I can take an ancient game and replace it with ray trace lighting and high resolution PBR textures that look incredible. So it's kind of nice. It's been fun playing around with it.
Cool. I had a chance to go back and play the Helldivers 2, their biggest update yet, and it is wild. So they added in new enemies, which was awesome. They added in the Impaler, which is basically just this thing that kind of jettisons its giant tentacles into the ground and then starts slamming and impaling you. So that's fun because, who doesn't like that?
So it's new enemies, but for the existing races?
Yes, they haven't added in the third race yet, which from leaks and stuff sounds like it's gonna happen maybe at some point. We'll see. I'm not like getting over the head for it.
Do you know what the race is yet?
It's called the Illuminate, I think.
Okay,
but we don't actually know.
Are they like psychic beings or something?
They're like an advanced alien race. So who knows?
Cool.
I never played the original.
It's just going StarCraft. It's going to be the Protoss.
Oh, yeah.
You've already got the
Protoss.
Zerg, you've got the Terran, and now you got the Terran are sort of you, I guess.
It's more like the Terminator, but
yeah.
That's besides the point. So
Protoss
all the new enemies are really cool. They didn't go like too crazy. It's kind of more of a remix of the other enemies that are already in the game, which is fine. I'm okay with that because they do require a little bit different strategy for it. And then they added in a harder difficulty because people were saying that 9 was too easy. And so like, well, welcome to 10. Super Helldivers. And
they literally dialed it up to 10. That's crazy. Can you imagine if they do 11? Yeah, it gets crazy.
Yeah, when you're playing against the bugs, I was successful in doing an entire 3 missions in a row on 10. And just the amount of enemies that you are fighting is just ridiculous. It feels pretty well balanced, though. it can be exhausting. Yeah. The thing is, though, and I thought this would be an interesting discussion, is it's getting... So the patch overall has been really great. They made some adjustments to a few of the weapons, one of them being the flamethrower, where they reduced the effectiveness of like flames, essentially, which seemed really weird because they just introduced a new war bond that involves a primary flamethrower and a secondary flamethrower. So it's like, what are you doing? And this has sparked controversy because now people are review bombing it again because of some nerfs. The overall patch, if you ignore just the flamethrowers, is great. It's a ton of fun. I'm loving it. But people are review bombing.
Make me so mad sometimes, man. It's like you've been gifted a fantastic game that so many people love. It's not perfect because no game is perfect. And especially when you evolve a game and add stuff to it. Sure, there's going to be little things you don't like. And your response to this amazing game that has been gifted to, not gifted, you paid for it, but still. that stands out among the other AAA copycat garbage out there. They did something unique and fun and crazy, and it stands out. You're like, Yeah, the balance for this one thing is not to my liking. Don't buy it.
So to give them a little bit of leeway, the developers have not done a great job balance-wise overall. They have kind of taken an approach where if something gets too strong, they'll just kick it in the teeth and bring it down because I don't know. I understand where they're coming from because if you have something that's too strong, right, balance-wise, then you run into the issue where if new weapons come out and they don't meet that level, then people are going to gravitate towards the thing that's already powerful because why would I use something else?
So why not? So are you saying they hard nerf it instead of just kind of give it a little bit of a nerf?
The way that players describe it and the way that it feels is that anything that feels fun to use then becomes not fun to use, which I don't agree with entirely, but I absolutely see where they're coming from. So instead of having stuff that's a little bit maybe too powerful, they're like, no. Everything needs to be right down the line. It's like, that's fine. But it is a power fantasy, right? It is a horde shooter. You're supposed to feel somewhat powerful in this, right? And it's supposed to be fun. It's a co-op game. It's not meant to be competitive.
From the developer perspective, you want as many people to use as many different weapons, right? You want as much variety out there. So I can see how down the line philosophy is what they're thinking because they're like, we just want people to be able to use the flamethrower or use the machine gun or use the whatever and still have a good time with everything and not feel like you're weaker than people using other weapons. But basically, are you saying, but if something just becomes unfun, where something being middle of the line just makes it less fun than another thing that's middle of the line, then that, I can see it's hard to do, man. It's got to be really hard. Yeah.
It's got to be difficult. Yeah. So I get why people are frustrated, especially when who was CEO and now I think he stepped down so he can have more of a direct role in the company in terms of like development. He said that they were going too crazy with this and they're going to take another look at the way that they balance. And I think they have a little bit, but it's more of just like, why do you keep doing this? Like you said you were going to do better. And then you come out with a new war bond that's all about flamethrowers and you nerf flamethrowers. Like what? That doesn't seem logical.
Yeah.
But at the same time, to review bomb the game feels, I don't know, a little severe for
it's a
what's
little
going
shisty, on. You know, it's
Another example is the new Prince of Persia game came out, and it's a great game. It's the side scroller puzzle platformer, great game, right? Played it on Ubisoft. It's on Steam, and it requires a Ubisoft account, and people are literally downvoting it because it requires a Ubisoft account. I'm like, I get it, but you're not reviewing the game. You're
also like we've talked about this a few times before on the podcast, but just like we get it. Whatever Ubisoft's installer's called, is it still Uplay? I don't even know what it is anymore.
Ubisoft Connect. I don't know anymore.
Whatever. It's like EA something, app now.
Yeah.
We don't like them either. They're not as nicely designed as Steam is probably the best in terms of like its interface and reliability and stuff. There's still problematic, but as a user, why are you fighting for a monopoly? Like, stop fighting for the monopoly. Stop penalizing a game for coming out on a different service. Even though I get it, Ubisoft is a massive mega corporation. So is Valve. So is EA. So is Epic. You know, they all have their own game installers. Let's let them compete against each other and not just be like Steam only, because Gaben's not going to be here forever. All right. He's not going to be. As soon as somebody else comes in charge of Valve and is like, guys, we got to get profits up, which is how all corporations are run, then that Steam is going to turn into something you don't like as much. And all of a sudden you're going to be like, boy, I wish I hadn't review bombed every single game that came out on the Ubisoft launcher and the Epic launcher. But the economics of this are just not taught in schools, Matt. And nobody understands that we're just screwing ourselves.
I get why people are using review bombing or giving negative reviews, because it feels like because it gives power to the players in a sense, right? They have some influence a little bit.
So we can take away our own power with our power.
bear with me.
Yeah.
So like with not just with this Ubisoft title, but also with Helldivers, right? The Helldivers community is expressing their annoyances, their grievances in the form of a negative review. And their hope is that will hopefully shift their perspective, and they'll make some changes to get the community back on in their good graces. I get that, but it's getting to the point now where everything is review bombed for like the smallest little things, and it's like if you cry wolf too often, people are just gonna start ignoring the reviews.
For sure. Well, already I think we roll our eyes a bit at the review bomb, right? Because
a little bit sometimes.
When they first started happening, it was usually for some egregious offense, right? Like the devs did something crazy where they racked the price up, or like there was a really big problem with the game, or the devs just had some crazy philosophy on something that like offended everybody. And then it was just like review bombed, and you're like, okay, I get it now. But now we're talking about, oh, I didn't like the balance of the latest patch. Review bomb. Oh, I didn't like the fact that I have to play it on Ubisoft Connect. Review bomb. And you're like,
yeah,
it's just
it feels too severe for the punishment doesn't fit the crime kind of a thing in a way,
because the review bombs do affect games significantly. And then ultimately, if you take enough money away from the devs, they're not sometimes these fixes or these corrections are not in the hands of the people that you think they're in like other people who are unaware or not connected to it or whatever. And then you're taking enough money away where they don't have the time to come back around and change the game, or the people higher up are like, yeah, we're pulling support and we're shutting your team down. And now that game that you're like, I really like it, but the balance wasn't good, so I review bombed it. And it's like, well, now they're just not making the game anymore. Like, I mean, that is the effect, because we talk about cause and effect, happen. But
it hypothetically,
yeah. If you truly do like a game, I don't think you should review bomb it, even if you're not happy with the latest patch, because that review bomb will reduce the funds available to the devs, and they will act accordingly from the top down, which is looking at the finances first. And they'll go, oh man, the latest patch is not doing well. People don't like it. Maybe we should think about not doing another patch and just move on to the next project. And that's a very real thought that most people at the top have. So I don't know.
It's really gray. I think it's money. I agree with you. I think there's definitely moments where giving a negative review is completely appropriate. It's just going back to, people are crying wolf all the time, and eventually people are going to either roll their eyes and be like, I'm just going to ignore this. You see a game come out and it has negative reviews. You're like, well, normally I would be really. I think a lot of people still fit in this category. They see an overwhelming negative review on a game that they were interested in. They're like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't buy this game. But eventually, if this keeps happening, people are going to be like, is it because it's actually bad? Because the Prince of Persia is a legitimately great game. Maybe not a 10 out of 10, but it's a great game that I don't think deserves mixed reviews, which is what I think it is at right now.
I also wish that Steam has thumbs up or thumbs down.
Like, there's no nuance.
It's really dumb because there's this game that I was just checking out the reviews for it, and most of the reviews it was a very positive reviewed game, and every now and then there'd be a negative review, and the reviews were usually like, I really enjoyed this game, I spent like X amount of hours on it, 20 hours, whatever, but for $25 just you can get a better game out there or something, thumbs down. And it's like, okay, like that's a fair critique, at least letting people know that you think it was too much money. But is that like, it's either a 1 or a 0?
All or nothing.
Yeah, it's either a 0 or a 10 out of 10. And you're like, that seems like a 5 out of 10 review, 6 out of 10 review, like I liked it, but it was price wise too expensive. Like there isn't anything in there for those people. And I feel like maybe with the patch stuff, those reviews could come in as well. Now, are those reviews for the patch or the entire game? Because that also seems problematic too. Is like, it'd be cool if like those
the entire
reviews.
Game.
Yeah. Because you can't really review a DLC or a patch, can you?
No,
I don't think you can. That does seem like a little bit of a problem with the Steam UI as well. It's like, it'd be neat if you could update that a bit more to have a little more control over which parts of a game are good or not. You know, like the base game's incredible, didn't like the DLC or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, there was this will be a game that I'm sure is going to have some controversy when it launches, but we'll see. Stalker 2, which has been delayed many times.
Many times.
They just came out with like a, it's like a 30 or 40 minute long dev deep dive gameplay trailer. Devs talking about it. I did not get through the whole thing because it came out today and I just had to get some work done.
I'll have to watch it.
That. Yeah, I'm going to finish watching it, but I got about 20-ish minutes into it and the graphics look good.
Oh yeah, there it is. Top of Reddit for games.
Yeah. It's so the visuals for Stalker 2 have kind of, they keep reusing a lot of the original trailer clips, which are like Unreal Engine 5 pushed to the max with incredible lighting. And then we'll see versions of the game at like Gamescom, I think. There's some footage that came out and that did not look good. And people were like, what is going on with the graphics?
Yeah.
Now they look good again in the dev deep dive. So it's sort of restoring my faith in their ability to hopefully deliver a really incredible looking game. It looks cool, man. It looks like they're staying true to the original Stalker. I can see some of the critiques of hardcore fans about the game. One of the things that people like about the original Stalker game, and remember, the original Stalker game is old. Like, it's before we were used to all the modern user interface quality of life improvements that we have nowadays. But like the original Stalker game didn't even have any sort of waypoint markers, you know, in your heads up display, anything like that. So the new one does. It's got a little bit of waypoint markers, and it's funny how that's become a bigger critique of the game, because it's what people like about the original one so much is that it really does put you in the element. You just have so little heads up display stuff to tell you anything. But at the same time, it was such a hardcore game that like the learning curve in it is brutal. And if you've ever played it, you get killed by
maybe they could add in a HUD element where you can turn that stuff off, or, you know, just not put a marker on your map and just go, you know, no, don't use it.
That would actually be neat if they just had like hardcore original Stalker mode as like an option, and then you turn that on and you don't get your waypoint markers or something.
I'm assuming it's still going to be relatively hardcore though. This is not not ultra casual Tarkov Stalker. Yeah,
no, I mean it looks pretty much identical to the first one. Some of the combat looked a little more, and I hate it when they show their gameplay off with somebody who's mediocre on a controller.
Or just really kind of takes it, because they're trying to make it look cinematic, right?
Yeah. And then you got a guy that's like missing half their mag and you're like, I mean, I don't know. It just bugs me watching it, because then you don't know what the gameplay is like, and they're winning the firefights, and you're like, should you have won that one though? Because you just...
Well, I'm sure there's going to be difficulties.
Yeah. Some of the combat looked a little like the original Stalker game. You can't screw up in that. You get killed all the time by the NPCs. Like, they flank you, they shoot you, getting shot just a few times, you're bleeding, you're dying. Like, it's brutal. And in this one, they seem to be approaching some objectives a little bit more just openly, and kind of having more enemies killed in a firefight. Like in the original Stalker game, 2 or 3 bad guys could be a real challenge if you weren't aware of them. And this one, he's like dropping like 6 or 7 at a time, and they're kind of overusing some of the telepathic guy stuff, which are supposed to be more rare, but it still looked visually really cool.
They were using the telepathic guys, which should normally be rare, and they were using...
in the original Stalker game...
I know, I'm just kidding, dude. I'm just kidding.
Telepathic dudes, when you find them, it's like freaky, and they can really mess you up if you don't know what you're doing. And then in one of the combat sequences here, the guy's like dropping several of them. So I'm really curious to see how it evolves, though. I think they're going to have crazy challenging guys and like hard stuff.
I hope so. Or just a hard difficulty.
Yeah. The visuals, though, oh man, it is dystopian. Just
delicacy.
Amazing. Yeah. It looks fantastic. They've been working on it for a long time, and still, I think it's my most anticipated game right now. I've been waiting for it forever, and I'm going to spend some time with that one when it comes out.
That and Space Marines 2. And Space Marines 2, I think, had some previews come out since last we talked, and everyone's saying it looks awesome, and I can't wait.
I got a hot take on that. I got a hot take, Matt.
Okay, what's your hot take?
So, some content creators got invited to play the game early.
Right. Yeah.
Did you happen to get invited or no?
Nope.
Oh yeah. Neither did I.
Is that your hot take?
Yeah. So I hate it now. No.
I hate it. Screw you.
I watched both Drewski and Jack Frags play it a bit, and the visuals. Oh my god, the visuals look fantastic. Incredible. Background stuff looks incredible.
Yeah.
It does look a little bit kind of just like Darktide though, to an extent.
Well, because it's a horde shooter.
Yeah, but I don't know. Some of the guys just felt spongier than I thought they were going to be. I thought as a Space Marine, you were just going to be ripping and tearing through these guys left, right, and center, and a lot of it kind of felt a little bit slower in the way that Darktide kind of maybe even slower than Darktide to some extent. Where in Darktide,
probably some of them,
you're really just like knocking those like zombie guys away in Darktide, and they throw hordes of them, and you can just chew them up. And 40K felt a little bit slower. And I guess I was just expecting something where the Space Marines are really just ripping through hundreds of them, and it felt a little bit slower where it's like, oh, there's tons of elites and you have to work together and defeat each one. And I mean, it looks cool, it looks fun. I'm definitely gonna play it. I just was expecting a different paced game.
That's
I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a hot take when you have an expectation and it's a little bit different. That's fine.
Yeah,
I mean, how dare you?
I haven't played it, and I'm still very excited to play it. I just thought it was gonna look a little bit different. I thought it was gonna look like those amazing rendered images of Space Marines just absolutely decimating everybody in front of them and just like going crazy. And there is some of that, but yeah, it just seemed like each encounter was like a little bit more prolonged than I thought it was going to be.
I think it's meant to be a little bit of a dance where you have to be dodging, because you're always trying to keep your armor up, because your armor is like your most important defense from the sounds of it. I didn't watch too much because I didn't want to spoil myself, but I kind of got like a little bit of a gist that you're going to be needing to do certain, like dodging the right time, blocking the right time, hitting them at the right time, finishing them at the right time, so that you can keep that armor going. Yeah. And those harder enemies are there so that you, not only is there a challenge, but also so you can get your armor back and then keep continuing. Because there's still tons of small little enemies that you're just plowing through.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Also, I should say I know nothing about Warhammer, really. Like, I know enough in that I've played a bunch of games and stuff, but Atif in comments is saying, but level cap, the Tyranids have spent centuries evolving to fight the Space Marines. So, dude, I don't know.
The lore is so. So speaking of other 40, I played 40K Speed Freaks, which is basically Twisted Metal, but in the 40K universe, where you play as orcs, and it was fun. It's free to play. I played it last night. It was a blast.
I actually like that idea.
Yeah, it's neat. There's only like 2 modes, so it feels a little basic because it's early access right now. But my chat was telling me the orcs are actually fungus. They are a sentient fungus that they use the power of their collective minds to influence the reality itself. Where if they have a color red on a vehicle, that vehicle goes faster because red means faster. Purple means invisible, I think. Blue is luck. Yellow is Daka Daka, which is,
I've heard this before. Yeah.
The lore in 40K is nonsense, but
bananas.
It's fun nonsense.
Yeah, right? It's like Ring World, kind of. Have you read any of those? No,
I've never read. No, I should, but I haven't. Yeah.
Where you're just like, one of the characters on there is the luckiest person in the universe, because they've been bred by lucky people have mated together for thousands of years to make person. And luck is like an actual tangible thing, and so it leads to all kinds of silliness.
So that's the 40K universe. Like, orcs are literally fungus. They die, and when they die, they make spores, which then make more orcs. Right? It's madness.
Yeah. Yeah, Atif asked if it could be an engine limitation as to why the amount of bad guys you're killing at a time. It could be, probably
There's
not.
a lot on screen though.
Yeah,
They're showing off it's not an insignificant amount.
Yeah, I'm sure there is a limit somewhere at which point the game just explodes, but I'm sure they cleverly code in how many baddies can actually join the combat fray versus all the ones you see in the background, because a lot of it is a little bit of sleight of hand tricks where you see huge hordes breaking through stuff in the background,
flying through the distance.
The set pieces are incredible where you see the hordes running up a ramp into a city and all the city cannons are shooting down on it and there's massive explosions. And you're like, that's like 10,000 bugs trying to enter the city. And I'm watching them all get evaporated. And then on your screen, there's like 20 or something. And it's still cool and it fits in nicely with the background, but you're not, the 10,000 bugs aren't like running onto you and you're not just like sharing.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different than what I was expecting, but I did play a lot of Darktide and I did enjoy a lot of Darktide. So even if it is like Darktide, I'm probably going to have a good time. I just want to be the guy that shoots stuff though. I like the guns.
Well, I think you're going to have plenty of weapons in this.
Yeah. Are you,
from the sounds of the customization?
Are you going for a tank or melee focused? Like what's
I have no idea. I haven't really thought about it or looked into it. I'm just trying to go in when I am excited about a game because I know I'm going to like it and it reviews well. I try to avoid any media on it because I just want to go in and experience it for the first time. I don't want to see those set pieces. I just want to in the moment with my chat.
Fair enough. That's a good way to approach it, man. I can appreciate that. Yep. Are you I don't think it's coming out today, but maybe in a day or two, actually probably by the time this podcast is live, the new Hunt Showdown update is dropping.
It's like Hunt Showdown 2.0, even though it's not called that.
Yeah, I know. Hunt Showdown, what is it, like 1896 or something like that?
Something like that. Yeah.
So it's like a big update for Hunt Showdown, a new map. The devs say it's like their most detailed map ever. And the maps in Hunt Showdown already look incredible.
It's not just a new map, it's a visual update to the game too. Like I think they might be on a new engine and the map looks gorgeous. Like it's game already looked great. Like they're taking it to another level.
Okay. I'll have to read up on that because they were on the Cry engine to begin with, so I assume they're on. Cool, my phone.
I think they're still on CryEngine. I don't know. Maybe I could be mistaken. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they're doing a graphical overhaul, and it could be because they're on an updated engine.
Yeah,
but I could be wrong.
And the game already looked good. I mean, sure, it was it's older at this point, bit outdated. But it's still artistically the art department is like knocking it out of the park. So. Yeah, I'm quite excited to see this update because if it evolves Hunt to like be on par with anything that's out right now, it's like fantastic. I still think that time period and the bayou and the music and the kind of like the drums that beat during the menu, like it's just it's got a vibe. That game's got some of the better vibes for any multiplayer game out there. It's
incredibly immersive. Yep.
Yeah.
But as you said, new map, updated graphics, updated sound. They have one of the best sound designs already in the game in the industry, and they're making it apparently even better. They're adding bullet drop, so now longer range shots will be harder. But now if you do hit someone in the head,
hard enough, my God.
If you hit someone in the head now, though, no matter what, it will be no matter the weapon, they will drop. They're adjusting the perk system.
Rainbow Six. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but it's Rainbow Six without crazy high rate of fire nonsense.
Yeah.
And way more difficult to actually line it up. They're adding in or reworking a bunch of perks because right now the Necro perk is like
I don't like that one.
Yeah. That one's a little ridiculous. But yeah, just across the board, the game is getting big adjustments. They're adding in some new enemies. I don't know if they're adding in a new boss. I don't think they're doing that.
Do they have a roaming boss yet?
They have not. It's not a roaming boss, but they do have one that's just in the swamps, which is a alligator.
Yeah. Okay. I know they had for a long time talked about having a roaming boss. I would imagine they tested it and it just didn't play out properly or something. But I do like that idea of there being a boss that roams the map, and like, even if it's not for one of the bounties, even if it's just like for some just other
a really
type
hard
thing. Yeah. So you could be in a firefight and all of a sudden this crazy, like some of their concept art for some of their bosses were like crazy antler type looking. They look like a mutant deer type guy. Sick. I'm like, yes, that'd be
just roams around in the forest.
Yeah. God, the game is pretty freaky as it is, but like, yeah, I'm always down for them to update that scare level for sure. You know what's cool? You're talking about the audio for that game. They do something in it that I wish every game did, but it is so cool where when you are inspecting a weapon, you can left click and hear it fire in the menu, so you can hear exactly what the weapon fire sounds like.
Oh yeah.
Then you can scroll out and hear it at different distances, and there's a distant marker on your heads up display, and it just shows you, okay, this is what that gun sounds like from 50 meters away, from 100 meters away, from 200, from 300, from 400. And that's such a big thing in video games where like the really good players will be like, oh, that dude's got like a Mosin, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. I play with people that like, they're like, oh, that's a Mosin. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, that's a Mosin 300 meters out. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah. And like, that intel's really important because if you know what they're shooting with, you're like, that's either a sniper or a dude with a shotgun. Like, I mean, that information is super important to know when you're approaching gunfire. You're like, what do they have? What can they take me out with? Right. And so having that built into the UI where you can just study it there and you'll be like, okay, cool. I figured out all the sounds for the guns now. Like it's really neat.
I think what they're doing is now, I saw a video. I don't know if this was already in, but when they take the shot, you'll hear it was fired at you. You'll hear the crack of the bullet that flies by you, and then you'll hear the audio off in the distance.
Ooh, yeah.
So it's the double, and like, oh, that is slick.
Yeah, that is cool. I love
their audio.
I love realistic audio. Yeah, I'm excited to get into that. I'll hop on with you if you hop on when that update comes out.
I'll do some
gaming.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. What else you been playing, man?
Those are really the big one. I put a ton of time into Delta Force. I might even play more tonight. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's just the sweetness.
You didn't get tired of those two maps, man?
Well, it's because I bounced between the two. Like the Tarkov mode. I had a mode in the it's Havoc Ops. I can't remember what it's actually called. But I went against a team of 3. Mm-hmm. My two teammates they died. I killed 2 of the others. Another team rolls up, and I'm like, okay, now it's 4v1. I'm in a corner with no armor, and I somehow come out alive and kill the entire enemy squad. In those moments, they get the juices flowing, level cap.
Yeah.
I feel it in my bones.
Like, I still got it. I still
got it, baby. I might be 35, coming up on 36. I still got it. And it feels fantastic. Like, you can use the audio is also really loud. One big critique that people have is Tarkov. People sneak up on you, and it's like in this game, you hear people when they're running, right? Like you know they're nearby, and yeah, it's just being able to use your tools available and smoking out and getting flanks, and it's fun. So that's really what I've been putting the majority of my time into this week. So I haven't had a chance to play a lot of other titles. Not that a lot of other titles have come out since the last podcast.
Yeah, that's fair. It's only been a week. I mean, they can't drop mega hits every single week, although the game industry is pretty crazy in there.
Though this next week is going to be wild. Hunt Showdown. There's the new Wukong game that I can't wait for. Spectre Divide, I think, is going to have a beta coming out tomorrow, which is not tomorrow for the podcast. It's on the 13th.
I got a key for that if you want to play.
Yeah, I got a key for it too.
Cool.
Thank you. And then, so this next week's going to be stacked. Needless to say.
Yeah. Comes in waves. It comes in waves for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's exciting, man. I'm glad the game industry is doing so much stuff right now. This is sort of beginning of the month news, but I'm always following computer stuff and hardware news because...
the Intel stuff?
Yeah. The Intel laying off 15,000 employees and their stock just dropping massively. It's interesting because since I started YouTube and probably significantly before that, I was basically using Intel CPUs exclusively because they were just the best. Like AMD was there. They were always a usually good economy buy, but if I was looking for I was usually buying, my PCs
Intel, i5s, i7s.
Yeah. And I was usually trying to get decent hardware. I like to have good gaming hardware, so I was usually buying more of the premium line of chips.
And they were the best.
Yeah, for 20 years, that I was using Intel chips. And not only now have I been on AMD for a little bit, but just seeing how hard Intel, this mega, we always think of them as this mega massive corporation that's doing all this stuff. They are still, and they just dropped billions, I think maybe even trillions or something on these, it's probably billions, but on these chip manufacturing plants. And it's interesting because they have to plan for business decisions 20 years in advance because some of this manufacturing
can't just drop billions.
Yeah. Well, but that's how most companies are run these days, which is what's the 5-year outlook? What's the 3-year outlook? And Intel's well, it's going to take a long time to build these chip manufacturing plants with this new super advanced tech, and we're investing all this stuff. We're working on a 20-year long recovery plan for this investment. And you're oh my God. So obviously stockholders are I'm not waiting 20 years, so.
Right. Well, if they leave, then more people get at lower level, and then it turns out to be the good investment. Yeah,
buy now.
Do not take our financial advice.
This is not a financial advice podcast. Yeah. Matt just lost a ton to Dogecoin and Pepe Coin.
I didn't lose a ton to Dogecoin.
It's okay. We don't have to tell people about it. It's just weird that you put all of your money into Doge.
I didn't do anybody to Dogecoin. I don't have any cryptocurrency.
Yeah. This is probably for the best. You can actually buy stocks that represent the value of, I think, Bitcoin and Ethereum now. So it's basically for people who
That's strange.
It's not that strange. It's for people who don't want to have to operate on a crypto exchange, because crypto exchanges have been hacked and they have issues with them and that kind of stuff, where people's wallets get emptied out. So now you can buy. It's super safe, Matt. Don't worry about it. It can be safe if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, it can be dangerous. But anyway, well, it's kind of don't put your
go back to Intel.
Don't use your debit card when you fill out stuff on the internet. You know what I'm saying? It's you can make your bank account unsafe too. Yeah. But what was I saying about Intel? You had me on crypto.
20-year plan.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's crazy for a company to take such a long-term view like that, but I think they just don't have another option at this point. What else they got going for them? I hope they come back. We don't want AMD to dominate the market. We don't want anybody.
Competition's important.
Yeah.
We don't want to go from one to another just because they're AMD was the underdog.
Yeah. And also, it's not that AMD is the only chip manufacturer out there. Now it's all about smaller chips and mobile chips and all that stuff. And
Snapdragon.
Yeah, exactly. All that stuff is crazy now. But I don't know. I found it interesting just because we're watching this behemoth of a company that's been the core of my PC for 20 years. It's just they gonna make it? I don't know if they're gonna make it, man.
I hope they make it.
Yeah, I mean, somebody will buy them. They're not just going to shut down. The brand is too powerful, and that's usually what happens with any mega company is they'll get bought out by some other company. But yeah, I just think it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. I feel you.
Yeah. What you been watching anything good lately?
I haven't watched a damn thing because I've been reading. A nerd.
Yeah.
I finished a book in 2 weeks, which is pretty quick for me.
Yeah.
It was The Will of the Many, and it was a great read. I cannot believe that it ended on the biggest cliffhanger in the history of God damn it.
And the sequel's not out?
There's no sequel yet. No.
This is why I wait like 10 years to read a book.
Yeah, wait for all of them to the release. It was really fun though. My only complaint is that the main character is a little bit of a Mary Sue, where the author does go through the pains of describing why they're good at everything that they do, but there's some times where I'm like, really? He's good at everything? Like, come on. Like he has trials and tribulations, and he's not flawless, but it's one of those characters is like, they're the main character for a reason, right? Like they're really good at a host of different things, but really fun world. Characters were interesting. It's, without getting into spoilers, you know how Red Rising feels like the first book is setting the stage for a much larger scale?
Yeah.
That's what this book feels like.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. That's fun. I like, usually the first book in the series can be the most fun because the story feels a little smaller and a little more personal sometimes.
Yeah.
And that can be a lot of fun. That's a great way to intro characters and get you really invested. And then they expand it out after that. And you're like, oh my God, the world is epic and huge.
I hate it when stories start off where they just start listing names and places. And it's just like, no. You don't want to start big and then get narrower. You want to start narrow with like, I'm a farm boy. Here's my paw.
Yeah.
Oh, people are coming to our town. Oh, what's going on? And then you just expand into a bigger world, right? You don't want to, the whole idea of like, you're in this crazy huge world, all of us, it's too much.
Yeah.
I can't get into that.
Let's start off with politics right away. And you're like, no.
No, don't do that.
Yeah.
I can't follow this.
Yeah. Speaking of politics though, I've been watching House of Dragons.
Okay, I was like,
I know.
I was like,
let's get into it, Matt. Your favorite subject. I'm almost fully caught up on House of Dragons. I've seen the cool episode in season
with
2.
the dragons. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. What I like about House of Dragons is Game of Thrones. The dragons don't do anything until like the very end, and then this one they're just like, let's just start off with dragons doing stuff all the time. It's and cool. Sometimes they do really cool stuff. Yeah, so digging it, man. That last episode, or the cool episode, was fantastic, and I'm loving all the like deals and everybody having to choose sides and like dividing the world. And
there's some people that don't like it and they're saying that nothing's happening. I'm like, but there's so much going on.
Yeah.
Underneath everything. One of my favorite characters is the God, I don't even know the spy master. I don't know his name. He's the cripple who kind of like hobbles around. He's fantastic.
He is good.
I love
the spies not because he's the best, you know,
not because he's a good character in the sense like he's a good guy, but just the fact that the way he hits like roadblocks without getting he'll hit like a roadblock and then he'll go another way. And I'm like, oh, I love that. I love that you're kind of like, and then he keeps rising.
Yeah.
Right. Love seeing that kind of thing.
His character is super interesting because he keeps you guessing. You're like, I don't fully understand his motive. And also, does he have a motive? Like, sometimes you're like, I thought that was his motive, and now he's just doing something else. You know, he's like just doing whatever works out best for him to some degree. But all these characters usually have some fun hidden motive driving them, and such a good variety of characters in that show with all different stuff going on. Damon is a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying his sort of character progression where he's being kind of hounded by his demons, if you will. Damon and his demons. So that's been fun to watch. But from a fighting standpoint compared to like normal Game of Thrones, there really isn't anywhere near as much. But
except for the episode that we're referring to.
That episode, there was a ton of fighting, and it was super cool. And
probably some of the best realized dragons in a show or a movie I've ever seen ever. Just phenomenal.
Yeah. I think, the only dragon scene that I would say like lines up with it, and they didn't give us as much of it as I would want, is when I think it was the first time they used the dragons in combat in the original Game of Thrones, when there's like a caravan on the road that gets like attacked by a dragon, and it's just like full on chaos, and It's just like lighting people up left and right. And I was like, oh, it's so cool. Like they did it really good in that too. But yeah, when House of Dragons only competitor for like Amazing Dragon scenes is Game of Thrones, you're like, okay, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Not bad.
Yeah. So I'm enjoying it. It is a really fun change of pace that I'll admit take a little longer to get into because it is a slower burn. But now that I'm invested in the slow burn, I'm like, I like the slow burn. It's fun.
I like that burn.
I like it. Yeah. But that's what I've been up to. I've been making game dev friends too, man. It's doing my game dev stuff. I've been looking for local friends around, and I'm like meeting people who are like leads on fairly. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you actually is you're a big Dark Souls type of gamer guy. Did you play Mortal Shell?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
I played the beta and I wasn't super into it.
Okay. I met the lead of Mortal Shell.
Really?
Yeah, he lives super close to me.
That's super cool.
Yeah, we're just talking game dev stuff and like so it was cool talking about that stuff, but I was like, I bet you Matt has played this, but apparently
it just didn't really click with me. But
Gotcha.
I thought about playing it because I heard they made some improvements.
Yeah, I think it's like it was going for a more hardcore approach, where like even more hardcore when you're like, okay, games are pretty hardcore, but
it wasn't terrible.
So you played it a little bit, but didn't finish it.
I only played the beta.
Oh, I see.
It was like a demo or something, demo beta, whatever it was called back then. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I just
look
making
at you making friends.
Well, I don't know, man. It's funny because I was looking at local game dev stuff, and also,
how did you meet them?
There's like an Unreal Engine developer meetup around me, so I went there and I started meeting people, and then turned out a bunch of them like were a block or two away from me, and I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Well, look at that.
Yeah,
barbecue with some devs.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I've been having fun with that, but that's kind of the exciting and more NDA'd side of what I'm doing. Because they're like, this is really cool. Look at what I'm working on. It's all NDA. I'm like, gotcha. All right.
Yeah. Leak it level.
Leak it.
Leak it.
For one moment of glory, it's worth it.
I still don't understand why people do that. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, how many people do break their NDAs
throw it all away?
Intentionally? I don't think a lot of people do it intentionally.
It's true.
It usually happens through stupidity, where somebody.
There's some kids though that would do it, and I'm just like, what? Like you're just getting started on YouTube.
Yeah. And I think that's what it is, though. Is you said kids, they haven't quite developed the knowledge that building a good reputation is going to help them in the long run, and they're like, no, I'll just burn it all now for 15 seconds of fame. And you're like, all right.
It's not even 15 minutes. It's literally seconds, and that's it.
Yeah. Then there's that, this wouldn't really fall into the NDA realm, but what's his name? Tom something, the guy who does all the Battlefield.
Tom Henderson?
Yeah, is that his name?
I think so.
Yeah,
no,
he's like...
Tom Henderson's someone else.
Okay. But Tom something, he's made like a career, I think, now out of like basically game leaks and game information.
Tom Henderson.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so he's developed enough of a connection and spider web of information of devs who want to chat about games and leak stuff and whatever, that it's kind of become his career. But that's one of the few people that have turned leaking things into something that I would say is potentially valuable for them in the long run. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's just a good way to blow up all your credibility.
Agreed.
Yep. Which is why you stopped leaking stuff, and I commend you for it, Matt.
Yes, because you know me, I was getting all those details behind the scenes. Definitely invited to stuff.
You and your alternate profiles on Reddit. You're just like, here's all the details. Yeah. Well, we should play some Hunt Showdown, I feel.
Okay, I'm down. Yeah, Spectre Divide too, if you want to play that.
Yeah. That one's tomorrow, right? Yeah. Or the day before, if you're watching the podcast. As opposed to any of our thousands of people watching us live right now. If you would like to watch us live, you can support us on Patreon, which we do appreciate. It helps us invest more money in crypto coin, Dogecoin specifically. All that money goes straight into Dogecoin. No. But if you want to support the podcast, check us out on Patreon. It is linked in the video or the podcast description. So we appreciate that very much. And if you do the Patreon, not only can you watch us live, but after the podcast, we do a little more down-to-earth talk where we just talk about anything that's been going on in our lives and whatever interests us. And so that's always fun. And we chat with you guys in the chat at that point as well. So yeah, check us out there. And otherwise, Matt, you got your weekly advice for our listeners?
Yeah, this was good. This was a good one. Hey, you know that thing you've been waiting and you've been delaying and procrastinating, and you've been waiting and you're like, I'll do it tomorrow. Don't do it tomorrow. Do it today. Do it today. Do it right now. Go do it. Just go do it. Make that call. Do it. Do it. Stop waiting. You're welcome.
All right. I'll go shower. Fine. I showered last week. What's the problem? Okay.
You only need to shower like once a week. Come on now.
Yeah. I was, my college roommate, was like just disgusting. And he was gross. Like, if you don't shower, for a certain period of time, your body excretes a natural like soap or something like that. And I was just like,
that's called sweat, buddy. It's called you're greasy.
Yeah. What year were antiseptics invented?
I have no idea.
It's like alarmingly late in human history. Let's see. Oh man, it auto-corrected it because I don't know how to spell antiseptics. When was soap invented? Okay, never mind. It was quite a while ago. There's some interesting info
my favorite is
2800 BC.
People come up with excuses like you just said. Your body will secrete some sort of soap-like substance, and then you'll clean yourself naturally. It's like, no, you smell, and it's like they ate cleaner back in the day, so they didn't actually smell that bad. It's like, no, they smelled. You smell. Go take a shower.
Yeah,
like stop that. Just because you eat clean now doesn't mean you're no.
I think it's when they figured out that soap and cleanliness actually had a health effect. That was pretty much later in human history.
Yeah, and it does have a health effect. Staying clean
for sure
does help you.
Yeah, reduces infections. And it also just don't be a smelly person. You know. Yeah. That's also your weekly advice. Is don't be a smelly person.
Yeah, that's it. Don't do those things I just had you do. Take a shower.
Yeah. You're welcome, everybody. Man, this podcast is helping millions of people.
It is so helpful. God damn it.
All right. I'll see you next time. Peace out.
Take care.